Hello everyone, welcome back to the Adkup Show. Today we will talk about complex world of geopolitics and economics, which we do all the time, right? So today we are diving into Iran, a country at a crossroads of economic turmoil and political instability. So without wasting time, let's get started. First off, let's talk with the bread and butter of Iran's economy, that is oil, gas, and dash of agriculture and services. Now, you would think with all that oil, Iran would be rolling in cash, right? Well, not quite. The economy has been on a bit of a roller coaster, thanks to its heavy reliance on oil and financial crunch, and of course, sanctions. In 2022-2023, Iran saw a GDP growth of 3.8%, which sounds good for a second most sanctioned country. Well, the first is Russia, of course, but it's a bit of slow dance compared to the previous year. By the way, Iran, despite being sanctioned, had a GDP growth between 2 to 5%. And this shows how resilient and strong the Iranian society is. Anyways, moving ahead, this growth was mainly fueled by recovery in services and a slight uptick in oil activity. They probably sold some extra oil to China, and a lot of gets smuggled on the borders with Afghanistan and Pakistan. Sanctions from the US and others have forced Iran to get creative, pivoting more towards trade with neighbors like China. And by the way, they are trying hard to restart their trade with India, and they are pretty much succeeding, as we can see that they have finalized the deal for Chabahar port. And to do these transactions, they use barter systems and local currencies, as they are pretty much out of international financial system. Now, according to some reports, Iran's government budget is around $50 billion, and out of that, around $35 billion comes from economy which is directly dependent on trade with China, which means selling of oil to China. Now, that's too much of dependency, but Iran doesn't have much options. To be fair, Iran's TFR is falling, which currently stands at 1.7 to 1.8, and the country has no big production or consumption. And I know I will get too much of hate from my pro-Iran viewers, but the reality is that this status quo will not be changing anytime soon, which makes Iran a very fragile state, which is seen as a high-risk taking state, but also which avoids any kind of hot war, as the industrial base is very weak and fragile. The good thing about all this is that Iran has a lot of gas, and future is gas and not oil. That's one of the reasons why Arabs are so jealous of Iran, because they don't have much gas reserves. In this case, Arabs work with the West to destabilize Iran. The reality is that the West and Arabs aren't just looking for a regime change in Iran, but they want to balkanize Iran and control that region. It's something similar to what happened in Syria. The country is totally dependent on foreign assistance now, which leaves them with no sovereignty. Now, Iran is much powerful than Syria, but a lot of that power is directly linked with the alliances and dependency they have on Russia and China. Remember, I said Iran doesn't have any production or consumption base. Now, let's talk about inflation. It's been through the roof, with 2022 marking 4 years of a row of 30% plus inflation rate, which is extremely bad. Imagine your grocery bill doubling every few years. That's the reality of an average Iranian. This has pushed millions into poverty, with the Iranian rial hitting rock bottom. This has also resulted in negative churn in Iranian society, bringing socio-political unrest. Just a few weeks ago, aimed a harsh winter, the government had to cut highway lights in Tehran to save energy. That's how dire the situation has become. The real value has also nosedives, and there's no quick fix in sight as long as those sanctions are in play. Now, onto a crisis that got everyone in Iran turning the lights off earlier, the energy crisis. Iran's facing a daily gas shortfall of around 350 million cubic meter and power deficits at peak at 20,000 megawatt. That means school, businesses, and homes are dealing with regular blackouts. So why this is happening? Well, the answer is aging infrastructure, sanctions hampering imports for maintenance, and frankly, some poor management. Without enough gas, industries can't run at full tilt, which hits the economy where it hurts, in productivity and jobs. which are already in small numbers in Iran. Let's not forget the elephant in the room, sanctions. Since the US pulled out of JCPOA in 2018, Iran's been economically isolated. They have had to resort to unconventional methods just to keep the economy from tanking completely. But the hope for a new nuclear deal? Well, it's looking slim to none in 2024. This has not only stalled economic recovery, but also pushed Iran into the arm of China and Russia for trade, making the West a bit nervous about regional power shift. However, West achieved major victory in Syria by defeating Russia and Iran. Politically, Iran's a different beast and probably the craziest out there. The 2021 election saw Ibrahim Raisi take the presidency, who was a hardliner, which meant there would be no room for liberal voices. In fact, they lost their grip until Ibrahim Raisi died in a helicopter crash. His time in power saw a rise of different protests for different reasons. Remember the 2022 protest about Mahsa Amini's death? That was the wake-up call for the government as the protest became very violent. The internet went dark more than once, showing just how scared and fragile the regime is. The government is unable to run the economic engine due to sanctions, and on top of that, hardliners are enforcing harsh Islamic rules on common Iranians. This has made Iranians, especially the young Iranians, feel dissatisfied and fed up. According to a mainstream trend, they're looking for freedom, economic stability, and a voice in their country's future. Now, that means that they're looking for a regime change, which is clearly not an easy task to achieve. Now, I have said earlier that Iran is a high-risk-taking state, which means they don't mind playing dangerous games. They are supporting various militias in Yemen and Lebanon, which acts as a destabilizing force in the region. Its nuclear program and ongoing cat and mouse with Israel and Saudi Arabia keeps the tensions high. Recent strikes by Israel, for instance, have only added fuel to the fire. This entire political chess sounds very useless. I mean, Iran should be focusing on its aging population, which feels dissatisfied, but instead of that, they're more involved into these games. But wait, we can't completely blame Iran for this. It's actually the US who is continuously pushing Iran against the wall. Iran is made up of several small ethnicities, and many of them want a separate state. This crack in society is exploited by the US and its Arab allies to further fracture Iranian society, which is already dissatisfied by its government. Now you decide who is at fault. So where does this leave Iran? Economically, it's trading water in a storm. Politically, it's a nation divided between the old guard and restless population. What's the future? Well, it's uncertain. Without significant changes, either from within or a dramatic shift in international relations, Iran's looking for more struggle. A lot of people try to build Russia, China, and Iran axis, but in reality, things aren't that straightforward. Both Russia and China support Iran, but they also don't spoil their relationship with Israel and the Arabs. So it means they are balancing the relationship and are more interested in maintaining the status quo, which Iran doesn't want, but it's forced to have. Overall, contrary to belief, Iran won't be a great power, and majority of its power comes from limited resources and alliances. I know Iran in the past used to control half of the world's population, but let's be honest, we are not living in 10th or 15th or 16th or even 20th century. We are in 21st century where machines and technology does everything, and whoever controls and whoever can produce these things rules the world. But hey, that's the thing about the geopolitics, right? It can surprise you. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more deep dives into complex geopolitical issues. Fill comments with your views. Until next time, keep learning, keep smiling. Peace out.